Alright guys, welcome to part 4 of my FPS tutorial. In this version we're going to be making a bullet count GUI. As you can see in the bullet count GUI, you're going to need a bullet count screen GUI, a frame, and two text variables called weapon name and bullet count. You can also add a gradient like me, but you don't have to. You can customize the look however you want as long as you have those four important things. Moving on from that, you're going to need to add something new to your server script. It's at the very bottom of the player.added part. Basically, this is going to prevent hackers from exploiting the game and giving them the same exact gun over and over by doing player.character added connect and setting the primary, the secondary, and the third gun name value all to nil, so that every time you do reload, you can load your gun up again if you died with the exact same default gun and not a new gun. Moving on from that, what you need to do is go to your server script, and we're going to add a couple new values like default setting. What the default setting is going to do is basically allow you to customize whether you want to load up with your new gun or your old gun. After adding default setting, you're going to notice that I deleted load gun and load arms function from the very bottom, because in this video we're going to replace it with a new function called OnSpawn, which is going to do it for us every time we come back from the dead or load our character. So very first thing you want to do is if gun.weapon is equal to nil, which is going to be our, I guess, failsafe from loading two different guns at the exact same time, which is possible if we don't have that there. After that, you're going to put if your arm type is nil, meaning you didn't put an arm type at all, you're going to have it as your default. And you're also going to put if your default setting is true. For me it is, because I only have the one gun. You're going to want to load arm, and you want to put arm type, and then you're going to want to wait a second because you can load your gun before you load your arms, and if you do that your gun isn't going to load at all. Anyway, after you wait, you're going to put load gun and then your default gun because the default setting is true. In the other version where you don't have a default gun and you want it off, you're going to put load arm type, and you'd also put an arm type inside of OnSpawn. Otherwise it's going to give you a default arm type. And then you're going to wait again just like the other version and where default setting was true. Although you'd also be able to change the arm type if you had teams by making like a little thing up there. So like player team is whatever the arm is instead of making the arm type equal nil. After waiting, you're going to load the gun, but instead of loading the default gun, because you don't want the default weapon, you're going to go into your gun inventory, and then you're going to go into primary, since it's going to save your gun from the previous time. And also, on the very first load up, if you do have it to false, it's still going to give you the default gun, because that's how we have it set as soon as the script loads up. After that, you're going to put OnSpawn after the OnSpawn function, because the very first time you load into the game, it's gonna make it to where your character doesn't load, or your character does load before the script loads, which is why doing player.character added function isn't gonna make it load up the very first time, only all the times after, so that's what the OnSpawn is there for. But after the OnSpawn, you need the player.character to add it and connect a function instead of connecting it straight to OnSpawn, because if we connect it straight to OnSpawn, it's going to put your arm type as the character, and you do not want that. You also want to be able to clear out all the guns and all the weapons you had before in your camera, and you're going to want to set your gun.weapon to nil and your gun.arms to nil, because it's what makes the failsafe for the gun. So if you didn't have that there, then the entire OnSpawn function wouldn't load, and you'd basically come back with no gun and no weapons at all. After that, you're going to do player.camera is equal to enum.cameramode.locked first person to actually start us off in first person and keep us there, since previously in all the other videos we'd always have to scroll in to see what it looks like in first person, but now we actually have true first person. It's a bit buggy with the bullet for now. What we're going to need to do is add that to our raycast later. I'll show you guys that in part 5. If you guys haven't figured it out by now, this is a voiceover. But anyway, here I'm resetting to show you that you get your gun back, and you obviously get your bullets back too, since it's a whole new gun. And it still works as last time, complete same, except this time we're always in first person. Pro tip, press F9 if you want to be able to move your mouse while in studio. After that, we're going to start working on the actual firing and sound mechanics of the weapon, which is what I promised in the last video, and the flash, which comes later. So for your firing mechanic, you want to do a gun animation for like gun recoil. On the pistol, it's obviously the slide going back and forwards. I already made it. You're only gonna need to make one animation because it'd be the exact same if you're aiming in or if you're doing it from hip fire. For the gun at least, not for the arms. Anyway, for the sounds, you also need to add some sounds. I found a fire sound and a blink sound that I like for my 5.7, but you guys could pause the video now and go look for your own if you want. The blank sound is going to be important because our gun still fires even when it is blank, so you want to let the player know that they're firing off blanks, they don't have anything. So after that, you're going to go to your aim shoot, and you're going to notice that we had it as aim gun last because aim gun is the same as idle gun, but we chose aim gun. So before you put in the shoot gun animation, what you're going to want to do is add it to the actual load gun animation so it loads the shoot gun track. So it's going to be animation to animation ID is equal to gun.module that shoot gun animation or anim. And then you're going to load it in. But the thing about this is that we're also going to need to go all the way back to the top after we put in this piece of code to actually create the animation track variable inside the gun table. You can see I'm doing that now. So shoot gun is equal to nil. And don't forget your little thing at the end. And after that, we can finally go back to update and put in the shoot gun animation. And the thing about this is that we're gonna leave aim gun in there and make it stop along with idle gun because it's a very strong possibility that you could be in either idle or aim gun while you're doing this. So you want both of those animations to stop and your shoot gun to play. Another thing that's important is that when you do create your shoot gun animation, you want it to have an animation priority of action. If you accidentally made it movement or core, you can always go and get the animation again and update it to be an action priority. You want all the other animations to be movement like I've been doing before, so that if the animations didn't stop and shoot gun is playing, shoot gun's going to take the priority over every other animation and it's still going to play anyway. So it's a fail-safe essentially. And after that, you're going to want to go up to the top and do the exact same thing. You're going to want shoot gun to play, and you're going to want aim gun to stop, and gun.animation tracks that shoot gun that is playing. You don't need to add it to the other ones because if you did, then the shoot gun animation would immediately stop because you only go into the shoot state for like a fraction of a second, so that it doesn't make multiple bullets like we did in previous videos where we had the fire rate system. So it's actually going to be overlapping into other states, but it won't be able to go into the shoot state again because of that. So that's why we have 3 for the shoot gun and only 2 for idle and aim gun. Now, going back up to the bullet register, this is where we're going to start making the actual audio and the sounds for shooting a blank and firing off an actual bullet as if we had one in the chamber, which is why we have 2 different sounds, and which is why we have if bullet register is equal to true, meaning we did fire an actual bullet, we had a bullet, otherwise we didn't have a bullet. So yeah, that's where these IDs are coming from. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is go to your script and add a new piece of code to the on-server invoke from the request. As you can see, I already added it in mine. I don't think I actually showed you guys how to do this. So the piece you need to add starts with the else if request type is equal to make noise, and then have the local sound. And in the sound, the very first variable you have after the make noise request is going to be the sound ID, and then the next variable is going to be where you want the sound to be parented to. I put it in the character head because that's where all the other sounds from a character comes from, and it just makes the most sense. So in here you're going to see I do remotes.request.invoke server. Of course, I have to go back and forwards multiple times because I didn't memorize it. But once I do invoke server, the very first thing I'm going to do is put in make noise, not create noise like I'm typing now. And after that, I'm going to put gun.modules.blank sound, since else is where your blinks are coming from. And after that, you're going to put not player, character.head, because at this point we have our character in there. So we don't actually have to do player.character. Once you do that, you're going to want to copy and paste that exact same script line to the top. Except in this time, you're going to want to replace gun.module.blank sound with gun.module.fire sound, so it makes two different noises. And here you can see I'm testing the sounds. As you can see, it's working just as planned. That's a sensor to cover my Discord. Okay, so now that we have our sound working, we're actually going to want to start working on the flash of the gun, like I told you. So to make it work, what you need to do is you need to go into your gun and you need to go get that the attachment I talked about in the very first video when we were rigging. I already adjusted mine to the way I liked, but inside that attachment, what you're going to want to add is a particle emitter. And you're going to want to find a texture, which is really just an image of a gun flash that you like for your gun. I already found the one I liked, and I found all the settings that I wanted it to be at, the size, the light influence, and whatnot. But you can also do this with shapes, like instead of making a gun flash there, you could possibly make like just a neon sphere pop up and disappear. But I'm not going to show that until like maybe a later tutorial if it's requested. Key things about the particle emitter, you want the lifetime to be really low, like I said in there, and the rate to be really high, because when we make the flash go on, it's going to be only for a fraction of a second, and you're going to want the flash to be on and off real fast so it looks very consistent with the gun firing, especially for any automatic weapon. So gun.weapon.handle.flash, wait for child, particle emitter, and then you're going to do .enabled is equal to true. And then you're going to wait for 0.1 seconds, because that's how much time you need for the particle to actually start displaying particles. And then you're going to do the exact same piece of code, except instead of enabled true, you're going to do enabled false. And here you're going to see me testing, and the flash is going to work just as planned. Beautiful looking gun. A lot more less stiff than last time. Has sound, has the flash, has animation. Looking real good. Now for the last part of this video tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to actually make the GUI work, because this entire time it said no weapon 0 out of 0. And we obviously want that to work so we can see where our bullet count is at for the very next tutorial where I'm going to teach you reload. We want to see the bullets actually go down and into the clip. So, very first thing you're going to want to do is open up your bullet count. Don't do that like I did. And after that, you're going to go into your local scripts to the previous update GUI script, because that updates like almost every second, so it's the exact perfect spot to put the updating of this GUI as well. We're also going to need to go back to visual variables and add a bullet frame so that we don't have to type the exact same coding branch 50 different times. That's like spanning half the screen. So player GUI dot wait for child, bullet count, and then wait for child again, frame, because the only two things we're going to want to be changing are bullet count and weapon name. We don't actually need a frame, so this is why I do both bullet count and frame. It's less for us to type later. So here we're going to do bullet frame.weapon name is equal to gun.weapon name. But later you're going to see that I also add if gun.weapon is equal to nil statement, because if you try to get the name of something that's nil, it's going to give you an error and break the entire script, which is why I'm adding this if statement. So if the gun doesn't equal nil, then we can go ahead with this. But if the gun does equal nil, we're also going to need to add a new statement, because otherwise it's going to leave it as the last gun we had, which we don't want. So bullet frame.weapon name is equal to nil. And you also need to add .text, because I forgot to do that. And we're also going to be adding the bullet count in here as well. So we're not going to make it its own if statement, because the exact same thing would apply. So we're going to do bullet frame.weapon text equal nil, and then after that bullet frame dot bullet count dot text is equal to nil as well. And then above that, in the version where it doesn't equal nil and we actually need the proper bullet count, we're going to be making it a remote instead, because we want to get our bullet count from the server and not the client, because of hackers and exploiters ruining everything. And we also want to make sure we truly have infinite ammo, and we can't tell that off a module script from the client. We can only tell it off from the server, because the server can't be changed by the client unless we allow them to, and we haven't done that so far. And like before, we're going to send the gun.weapon name, because if we send the weapon, it's going to go to the server as nil. But the name will go to the server as a text. So here you can see I'm doing local gun mod require modules. And we're going to do additional one for the gun name to get our old mod. So after that, we're going to add local clip, and then we're also going to add a local stock function. Or not stock function, but stock variable. And then we also need to get the actual slot of the gun to get the valid clip. So we're going to go back up to figure out which function we used, which was check for gun. After we get our check for gun function, we're going to go back down. We're going to do local slot is equal to check for gun file additional one. And we also need to get our file again. And if you've been paying attention, you'll notice that this is mirroring the very first add gun function. So local file is equal to player.waitforchild inventory. And after that, what we need to do is go into the bottom and do if the gun mod dot clip is equal to -1. It means we have infinite clip, so we're going to want to return infinite as the clip. Otherwise, we're going to want to get the stock.clip.ammo. Afterwards, we're going to do the exact same thing for gun mod, and then we're going to return toString clip // toString stock. And then we're going to load up into the game, and as you can see, it works just as planned. Alright, if you like this tutorial, leave a like if you want more, and subscribe if you want to be updated as soon as a new tutorial comes out.